Hey everybody, it's John Pollock here alongside John Ramdeen. We're heading into the weekend and Bellator 172 is happening Saturday night on Spike from San Jose, California, the unofficial home of one Scott Coker, who will be once again in business with Fedor Emelianenko as he is taking on Matt Mitrione in a fight that I think could be a rude awakening for some Fedor fans at where he is at the age of 40, especially after that Fabio Maldonado fight.
Yeah, I don't think it should be a rude awakening. We all know that Fedor, based on his entire career, Fedor takes damage. That's one of the things we love about this guy, is that he can take a punch. We've seen with Kevin Randleman when he picked him up and slammed him on the ground.
13 years ago?
I know, 13 years ago, but that's one of the reasons why people love Fedor, is because he always seems to come from behind. He always has a path to victory. And in that fight with Fabio Maldonado, the guy got hit in the head with a baseball bat and somehow got through that fight. Again,
I watched the Countdown show, and his last fight was Jaideep Singh. There was no Fabio Maldonado highlights in that at all.
The thing about
that was a win,
yeah,
I thought.
I know, weird. The thing about Fedor is he'll be the first one to say, I never once called myself the greatest of all time. That's everybody else. I'm a mixed martial arts professional. I love combat. I love fighting. I've dedicated my life to this, and I still want to do this. And I'm going to try to find a way to beat the guy in Matt Mitrione, who has less experience, less damage, genetically bigger and more powerful and stronger. But does he have the tools? The one thing about Fedor is he seems so calm in there. A lot of people, they liken him to Anderson Silva, the way that he's able to perform seemingly stress-free in a very dangerous environment. And just like Conor McGregor, where he leads everything to his left hand, Fedor Emelianenko, like Dan Henderson, tries to lead everything to his right hand. He knows that's the weapon of choice, and if he can land it on Matt Mitrione, if he can land it on anybody, it's going to be a very terrible night for his opponent. But Matt Mitrione, very aware of that, spends time working with Chris Lytle, in my opinion, one of the toughest warriors to ever grace the octagon or ever be a part of mixed martial arts. I wonder what the strategy is. Play this game calm, maybe, or do you go right after Fedor considering he's 40?
Yeah, I think it's going to be really a test of Matt Mitrione with, his improved footwork that we saw throughout his time in the UFC and where his striking is now. I mean, this guy was a great athlete, but he was essentially this piece of clay when he went into the Ultimate Fighter. And since that time, 2009, we've seen him evolve. I think if he had been 10 years younger at that point, we would have been talking about this guy as a possible heavyweight champion in the UFC during his time there. This is also, I think, beyond just whether Fedor wins or loses. It's, does he bring a big audience to this show? This has been one of the bigger Bellator events they've promoted. Certainly this year they've had now, this is their second big card of the year. Do you feel that the audience is going to be there for this fight? It's been many years removed since Fedor fought for Strikeforce. Do you feel that being on free television, that it's still going to be a very widely viewed fight?
I do. Just based on social media alone, Fedor seems to be everywhere. Scott Coker seems to be everywhere. And in addition to that, even though the UFC is having a show, it's not there's no real marquee names. So if you're a mixed martial arts fan and you know that there's fighting going down this weekend and you're only going to dedicate, 3 or 4 hours to watching combat, Fedor's the proven guy. Whether he wins or loses, he comes to entertain the crowd, and I think that's what fight fans, what they're expecting. It's like, yeah, we know it's. I don't know a lot of those guys in the UFC. Yeah, I like that Elias guy. He's got that hair, but he doesn't really, end fights the way Fedor does. He doesn't even lose fights the way Fedor does. So I think that's the appeal of Fedor. Is in addition to combat, it's entertaining combat. And I think if you're a fan of the sport, that's why you got to tune into.
I always love your breakdowns of what the person is thinking when they want to spend their night. They're like, all right, there's some sports on TV, but that guy with the hair guy. Also on this card, I mean, we have the return of Josh Thompson. He's taking on Patricky Pitbull Freite, who in his last fight just got waxed by Michael Chandler. It was a very tough knockout that he's coming back from. And as well, finally, the Bellator debut of one Josh Koscheck, who has been sidelined with just numerous setbacks, hasn't fought in 2 years, and certainly was piling up losses there towards the end of his UFC run. Do you see Josh Koscheck being moved over to Bellator, that this could be a bit of a renewed life to his career?
Well, one of the things that Koscheck was saying about this fight is the only reason he's doing it is because he misses competition. He wants to get back in the cage because that's been him. Whether it was wrestling or mixed martial arts, it's where he feels alive. He said, as a matter of fact, I lose money when I train in mixed martial arts because I have a bunch of other businesses that I can't focus on. I've got to bring in training partners and all this stuff. So this is not a money-making endeavor for me. I do this for the love of competition, for the love of the fight, and I think that's awesome. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to tune in to watch Josh Koscheck. If he's just going through the motions, because he says, I actually hate training. I don't enjoy training, but I love the competition. So the idea that this guy that doesn't need the money, that is financially secure, has kind of cemented his place in mixed martial arts history as, you know, the guy that challenged George St. Pierre, was part of that season one of The Ultimate Fighter, one of the, in my opinion, one of the best heels ever in mixed martial arts. For him to come back because he loves the game of mixed martial arts tells you what type of guy he is.
Will we see any announcements on Saturday? I mean, the Bellator, they use their big shows very appropriately. They not only present these fights, but then it's also what's coming next. And whether it's signings, I think everyone's anticipating Ryan Bader. It's just a case of when, not if, he's coming to Bellator. That's always, I think, a big part of these Bellator big shows as well, is just what you have at the end of the show to anticipate.
The only thing I just feel is kind of a dropping of the ball in the sense that you have your main event with Fedor and Matt Mitrione. People know their names. People know Czech Congo. They might not know Ollie Thompson, but he fought in the UFC and he fought in KSW. They know Josh Koscheck. They know Josh Thompson. They know Pitbull Freite. But where's the future? You need to be showcasing the future in addition of showing some of these older stars, because that's what you need to bank on. And
the average age on this main card, I mean, Cody was bringing it up the other day. I mean, it's staggeringly high. You're right. This is not one of those cards where it's, well, we're using these names to draw you in, and you're going to see a bunch of our younger prospects as well. You know, if you could have fit in an AJ McKee on this card, I mean, that's ideally what you want. This might be too name heavy of guys that certainly there are many more fights behind them than ahead of them.
Yeah, but again, let's just see how the card unfolds, because if Bellator has the undercard, a bunch of prospects look good, some quick stoppages, maybe they can insert those fights in the main card if some of the fights happen, you know, to not go the distance. So I mean, Coker's very, very intelligent, and he understands his audience. I mean, I've pretty much followed every Strikeforce event and his Bellator shows. He knows how to entertain the crowd. So the idea is he always builds for the future. He's always been building for the future throughout his career. He has relationships with Alliance and AKA. Pretty much every gym, probably in North America, if not the world, people know who Scott Coker is. So the idea, though, is to showcase some of those fighters, and I'm very surprised that none of them are on the main card.
Higher or lower audience than Tito Ortiz and Chael Sonnen in January?
It's very difficult, because Chael seems to be just a different type of animal. And then, you know, when you combine him with Tito Ortiz, you can understand why there's a lot of, you know, appeal from the old school fans and some of the crossover fans that were maybe they didn't see Tito Ortiz in his heyday, but they certainly saw Chael Sonnen in his heyday. The thing is, if you're a fight fan and you're around other fight fans, Fedor is one of the guys. But is Matt Mitrione the opponent that you want to see? I would say that Chael and Tito would probably be the bigger fight, but you just never know.
Yeah, certainly a lot of buzz, I feel, for this Bellator 172 card. It's coming up Saturday night in San Jose, California.